Join Martin Lewis over on BBC Two now. Now on BBC One, the news with Nicholas Witchell.
Good afternoon. At Stormont Buildings just outside Belfast, Northern Ireland's political leaders are studying the final draft of an agreement which is intended to end nearly 30 years of conflict and which would create for Northern Ireland what the Prime Minister has described as a new beginning. Talks, which have lasted on and off for 22 months, have reached their moment of truth. There had been a deadline of midnight last night for agreement, but that came and went without any agreement. The breakthrough, though, apparently came in the early hours in a face-to-face meeting between the nationalist SDLP and the Ulster Unionist Party. They agreed on the powers and structure of a new Northern Ireland Assembly to take over the running of the province from the Northern Ireland office. It's expected to have a multi-party executive with ministers appointed according to each party's strength in the Assembly. The second big challenge was to sort out relations between Northern Ireland and the Irish Republic. That's expected to take the form of new structures for cross-border cooperation and a new Belfast-Dublin Ministerial Council. The least contentious strand was the relationship between Ireland and Britain. There's to be a new Council of the Isles, linking the various parliaments and assemblies in Belfast, Dublin, London, Edinburgh and Cardiff. Our Ireland correspondent Denis reports now from Stormont.
67 pages, the final document in the hands of the Prime Minister. At last, everyone's tired, time for a cuppa.
Thank you, Nick. Nick, can I have one too, please?
It really is the last lap. What had appeared impossible for so long, on the brink of becoming reality. What a day, what a prize.
I think the most important thing is just to make sure nothing goes wrong in the last bit of it. Because my worry is with the document as long and complicated as this, people will come rushing forward at the last minute and try and either add or subtract things. But you know, the most important thing is that people make it work and realise it's only a beginning. I mean, it can't go on from here unless people really want it to.
One of the Irish ministers said it was a privilege to be involved in the process.
It was much more than a political process, of course. It was conflict resolution. And so we're very hopeful that the outcome of this process will bring an enduring peace and also a conclusion to sectarian hatred and all of the horrible things that have happened in the province.
The midnight deadline was missed, and as Easter snow fell on Stormont in the small hours, it was clear that, barring disaster, agreement was in the offing. It'll take some hours yet, and despite some of the major obstacles being overcome, crucial details nagged at the negotiators. The Ulster Unionist leader, David Trimble, was given unanimous backing by his party's executive to make an agreement. He spent more than 3 hours with the nationalist SDLP discussing the shape of a new devolved assembly. In the SDLP's offices at Stormont, the relief at the progress made was obvious. Despite the remaining issues, there was a dawning sense that history was in the making.
I have to pinch myself for the fact that we got a negotiated process, then to be involved in that negotiated process, then to get to this position. I think you have to doubly pinch yourself. I never thought in my lifetime I would see it. It's here. We all had, I suppose, some degree of faith and took the opportunity. It's now happened, or it's about to happen.
I think we stand on the brink of the opportunity of repairing not only relationships within Northern Ireland and between North and South, but relationships throughout these islands. That's something of the size of the opportunity that's ahead of us. It is and will remain only an opportunity. This is a foundation. We have to build the peace upon it.
The main nationalist leader was phoned by President Clinton to offer his support, clearly for the agreement the president believes is about to happen.
What we're here today doing is to finally, I hope, reach agreement that will, as I say, settle our quarrel and release all our energies to working together. And of course, I'm looking forward to an agreement that will have the loyalty and support of all sections.
Sinn Fein, like all the parties, didn't get anything like everything it wanted. But there are what they call equality issues, such as prisoners, that they can welcome.
Sinn Fein continues to be opposed to an assembly. Nevertheless, many of the checks, balances and safeguards which we argued for during the negotiations, have now been secured.
The Unionists, though, say they'll take as much time as they need to scrutinise the final document.
Because of the delay in bringing out the document over the last 6-7 hours, I suppose one must lower one's sights, so 70% chance of success, 30% chance of failure.
What looks certain to be achieved here cannot be understated. Totally new political arrangements agreed by Unionists, Loyalists, Nationalists, Republicans and the British and Irish governments. It will be a historic moment. Denis Murray, BBC News, Stormont.
Well, live to Denis Murray now at Stormont. Denis, just explain what's happening there now and what you're expecting to happen as the afternoon progresses.
Well, the final paper was circulated to the parties at about 11:30, 20 to 12. The parties were told they could have an hour to study it. It's a very lengthy and very detailed document, 67 pages, and covers all sorts of areas. The Ulster Unionists asked for more time, so I would guess that the document reading will be finished by about 1:30, 20 to 2, and then the parties will go into a full plenary session about 2 o'clock. Now, if there are going to be amendments or a lot of amendments, then that plenary could last quite a while. But in theory at the moment, that's expected to last about an hour. And then we should hear whether the deal has been signed, sealed and delivered. And I must say the expectation here at the moment is that it will be.
So your sense of what is happening is that the really contentious issues have been settled. There shouldn't be any significant obstacles now.
Not entirely to everybody's satisfaction. For instance, the Women's Coalition, one of the very small parties here, are extremely annoyed that the electoral system here will probably mean they won't win any seats. Sinn Fein are very angry that there's going to be an assembly. They feel that cements partition. Lots of parties have difficulties with bits of this, but basically it seems to me, from what I've heard from all the parties today, it's the best consensus they could come up with. Now, I mean, this really is a turning point. I have fought off using the word historic throughout this process, and I really think it has to be used today.
Denis Murray, for the moment at Stormont, thank you very much indeed. Well, now with me here in the studio is the BBC's political editor, Robin Oakley. Robin, a lot of people have taken and are taking very big political risks, aren't they?
There have been big political risks taken for a long time. I mean, John Major perhaps began with his dogged persistence when he had troubles enough through his period as Prime Minister by pursuing the idea of a settlement in Northern Ireland. But many others have taken risks. Even Gerry Adams, for example, in persuading the men of violence to go for the methods of the ballot box instead. David Trimble, the Ulster Unionists leader, by staying at the talks when other Unionists like Ian Paisley refused to go to the talks. Mo Mowlam by going into the maze to talk to the Loyalist prisoners and persuade them to give the peace process more time. And of course Tony Blair himself as British Prime Minister by keeping open links with Sinn Féin after the Lurgan police murders and by driving on this process by ending the obsession, as it had seemed to them, with the question of decommissioning of arms.
Robin, thank you very much indeed. Now, briefly to the rest of today's news. A man has died and hundreds of people have had to leave Stormont with the Prime Ministers of Britain and Ireland. There's due to be one final session of the talks when it's hoped that the agreement will be accepted. After that, there is expected to be a joint statement by the two Prime Ministers. We'll be bringing you events as they develop at Stormont throughout the afternoon here on BBC Two.